Nico Minoru is one of the first Midnight Suns to join your squad in Marvel's Midnight Suns. She has a extremely unique kit based around randomness, buffs, and high impact damage. Let's break down how to use the Staff of One Wielder. Let me know in the comments who you'd like me to do next, and we'll start with how to play Nico and some general tips. So Nico is a support hero whose unpredictability is offset by the sheer power of her abilities. Nico focuses on buffing herself and her allies with high impact damage, which does have randomness to it, but there are ways to alleviate this randomness, which we'll get into. So Nico's unique roulette mechanic is that randomness. Now, Nico's cards that feature roulette means that the ability's exact effects will be determined when the card is drawn into your hand. So for example, with blood magic, it can either apply blood magic, counter, fast, or strengthen, but that actual effect will be decided when you draw that card into your hand. There are other cards that will have this similar kind of focus or variation to it, and it will often lead you to redrawing Nico's cards if you don't get the buff or the debuff or the effect that you like. So if you're looking to put mods onto Nico's cards, those on redraw mods are really good for a lot of her cards. And another one is Nico's passive ability. Nico will have a chance to draw cards into her hand whenever other abilities are played. The percentage chances increase by Nico's friendship level with the hunter. And this is just a great way to get extra cards into your hand. Anytime you can draw cards is valuable. So when you are just like playing the game, make sure you do some spend time with Nico if you do choose to bring her on your missions, because it's just a good way to get extra cards into your hand, which could be quick cards, so you could just cast them for free or what have you. Nico's damage abilities are best utilized at the end of turns to minimize the possible target randomness when applied. A lot of Nico's damage abilities will hit random enemies either anywhere on the battlefield or in specific areas. So the least amount of enemies in those areas and also the least amount of health those enemies have, the less variation there will be. For example, for something like Witchfire, which will damage a random enemy and on KO it'll recast Witchfire. If you have lowered the health of basically every enemy in the battlefield to below the damage that Witchfire is going to do, you'll essentially just get free KOs as it goes around and KOs all of those enemies that it does hit. So let's get into those best abilities. We'll start with Blood for Blood. So on KO, restore health to Nico or to an ally, and this is a pretty high damage dealing ability. I like this ability because it is a free cast. It does give you heroism, and it does have the ability to heal allies if you do KO targets, which for the most part you will, because it does have such a good amount of damage, and getting any health back is really valuable. Nico is one of the only characters that can heal. She does have Restore, which will heal all of the health back to an ally, but it is exhaust an ability, so it means that you'll never get that card back in your hand again during that encounter. But Blood for Blood will allow you to heal someone at random, and because you've only got 3 heroes, you've got a pretty good chance of healing someone that does need that health, so it's not too bad to use. Witchfire will damage a random enemy and on KO recast Witchfire. This is one of Nico's best abilities hands down, especially if you can get all the enemies in the battlefield below that health threshold. You'll essentially just get 3 or 4 like instant KOs to any kind of enemy that could be, elites or what have you, and it's just a great way to clean up enemies at the end of fights. So say you've got like 1 card play left in that turn, you want to use Witchfire to then just clean up whatever's left. Blood magic will apply either blood magic, counter, fast, or strengthened, which is randomly selected when it's drawn to Nico or an ally. I mostly will redraw this unless I get fast or strengthened. Occasionally counter, depending on the situation. Blood magic isn't too bad, which will give lifesteal, but I don't use the blood magic or lifesteal too much. I'm mostly focused on trying to get strengthened out of this, because it will increase the offense of whoever you apply this effect to by 50%, which is just a huge increase to really deal heaps of damage. Empower, draw a heroic card and change the cost of all heroic cards in your hand to 0 until the end of the turn. This is a great skill if you are really struggling with heroism, or you've got some characters that use a lot of heroism and you just don't have the points to actually use. You can just set that cost to 0 and use them freely in that turn. Really great ability to use. And Crack the Sky, consume all heroism to damage random enemies X amount of times, 1 for each heroism, and you get 1 heroism for each KO. Crack the Sky is extremely powerful, and if you have 10 heroism, you'll hit 10 enemies randomly, which makes it a little bit hard to, decide who it's going to hit, because it does obviously go anywhere, but it's a fantastic skill to use, especially when you have heaps of heroism. So if you're stacking heroism by, using quick attacks or using Witchfire, things that give you heroism, you can then like dump it all all into this attack and get most of that heroism back if you are triggering those KOs. And Correct for the Sky comes from the Midnight Suns challenge for Nico. Nico's Midnight Suns challenge is actually quite difficult. I wasn't sure whether I should include this in the video or not, so let me know if you want me to do these for the future ones. But essentially you do this by redrawing the blood magic that you do get in your hand. You'll get another double up, and then you want to play both of the double ups back to back so that you can like duplicate the different damage cards that you do have in your hand. And then you want to redraw the Empower, as you don't actually need the Empower. It'll give you a blood magic with Strengthen. You use that Strengthen to then increase your damage potential. Then cast Witch Storm back to back on the two enemies on either side of the encounter. Now, this obviously has like a randomness to it with Nico's abilities, but in this encounter, they're actually static. So if you are hitting the right enemies, it will actually trigger the effects properly in the way that you can actually beat the encounter. So you do Witch Storm, and then you finish things off with both of the Witchfires, and you should be good to go. The best squad members to pair with Nico come down to a couple of things. The first is really any heroes that require lots of heroism. So someone like Hulk that does use heaps of heroism, or Iron Man, or even Ghost Rider. Those heroes that don't often give you heroism, they actually dump heroism. They're the ones that you want to pair with Nico, because you've got things like Empower to make those cost free, and you can also strengthen those heroes because those high heroism cost cards usually deal a lot of effects or damage. So you want to strengthen those enemies and then make those cards free, so you could use multiple of them in the one turn and give yourself a lot of value in that way. It's also really good to pair Nico with characters that have a lot of chain attacks, something like a Wolverine or a Blade, because of the effects and the randomness in something like Witchfire and, you know, even Witch Storm. If you do use that, you want to make sure that you are KOing enemies. So try to like whittle enemies down to be within that threshold for Witchfire to get that off is really valuable to do. And those chain attacks can help you really get that for multiple enemies at once, rather than spending one card play to just change one enemy's health. Spider-Man is also useful for that as well, because of his chain attacks, but also because of the way that he can use environmental attacks even for free, because if you can use those environmental attacks to get enemies within that health threshold. And it's also worth pointing out as well to make sure that you are sparring with your team members as well. The further you get in the game, this will start giving you some of the secondary stats permanently to those allies. It does cost credits, but it is worth doing because you get those passive bonuses, especially on the higher difficulties. Some of those like stat bonuses that will, you know, increase your crit chance or crit damage or area of effect, those kind of things are absolutely worth getting, and it's just like a great way to increase your overall damage potential for really all of your heroes. So absolutely well worth doing. I'm not sure if I'm going to do one of these like guides for all of the 13 heroes. If you do want me to, let me know in the comments down below. We'll see how they go. I'm not sure, there is a lot of heroes in this game, so I might just pick out some of like the, you know, heroes that you guys want me to do the most, or some of the most played heroes, but we'll see how we go. Check out my tips video if you are looking for more information on Midnight Suns. There's plenty of really quality information about the game and the different systems in that video as well, so it's absolutely worth checking out. I apologize for my voice. I'm still recovering from COVID, so I don't sound as well as I usually do, but thank you for bearing with me today. Thank you for watching this video till the end. Thank you to our members for supporting the channel. My name is NorZZa, and I hope you have a great day.